Hey guys, it's Shanna, and on the other end is Elin. Elin is one of my besties at UBC Med, and we're both second years going into third year. And yeah, he's a really great friend, super smart, very ambitious, and wanted to share his pre-med journey with everyone. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Elin's card. And I think this is true, applies to Elin. And so we're just going to go through Elin's path from high school to med and any things he learned along the way. The structure we're approximately thinking is kind of going to academics, extracurriculars, and then the application process, things like references, how he applied, interviews, and types of things, and then choosing where to go, and then a little bit about how he's finding med right now, any things he's learned, and then kind of a free flow end of any topics that came up that we think are interesting to share. Tell me a little bit about like what you did in high school. We'll start.
Yeah, so I went to like high school in Mississauga, Ontario. I did the international baccalaureate program. So a lot of like much of the program was just us trying to prepare ourselves for university. And I think from that program, I just realized, okay, I really like the sciences. I don't like math or business. So the only option there for me was like sciences. And so that's what I applied out of high school. I then applied for business, accounting, engineering because I didn't really like those stuff at the time.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so it was a pretty easy decision for me to make during high school.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of whether or not I wanted to be in medical school at that time, I didn't really know. I had a lot of options at that time. I could have went to research, dental, optometry, or medical school, so it was just one of the options at the time.
Mhm. When did you decide? Like early grade, high school, mid high school, end of high school?
Um, I think in early high school, I know I liked the sciences,
Mhm.
so I just kind of went in that direction from there on.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So then where did you end up going for undergrad?
I I applied to a bunch of places and I just picked one where it was closer to home. I picked
Mhm.
McMaster for Life Sciences,
Mhm.
and from that, my parents wanted to be closer to me, so they moved closer to Mac,
Mhm.
and so we just try to um, just work it out from there.
Mhm. So what was your undergrad experience like?
I mean, it was the undergrad experience could have been much, much, much better if I wasn't applying to medical school
Mhm.
because the environment was pretty competitive to the point that it turned like pretty toxic
Mhm.
at some point. Because like almost every single person around me was either going for medical school or dental school, and I didn't really feel this sense of community while
Mhm.
in undergrad. And it was just like studying every single day, trying to get high marks, doing extracurriculars, doing volunteering, just for the goal of applying to a professional school in the end. And I feel like, and because of the environment, I didn't really get the chance to make a lot of new friends in undergrad because people didn't really trust each other in
Mhm.
undergrad. People were like trying to like backstab them.
Mhm.
Like that was just kind of my feeling in undergrad.
Yeah, that actually relates. Like I felt some of that in my undergrad, unfortunately too, and I think it's actually quite unfortunate. I think like that's the one advantage
Yeah,
I kind of almost wish that if you study like a non-traditional science route, is that you don't have as much of that toxic environment. I definitely think it gets better by the end of undergrad, but definitely at the beginning of undergrad, it's like everyone goes in. A lot of people go in going wanting to go to medical school, which is totally fine. But there's
yeah.
a bit of like competition because there's only so many spots, and then sometimes
Hmm.
like or like depending on the structure of your classes, sometimes they're like only the top something percent are allowed to get this grade, and then it creates a bit
Yeah,
of a culture. Do you have any
yeah.
particular instances of like examples of toxic pre-med culture?
It's just uh, like they say undergrad should be like the best experience of your life, but that was far from it. I feel like med school is much better than
Mhm.
undergrad. Like just like few examples, like in terms of toxic mentality, is like you can't really ask your classmates for help if you don't know something. Like I feel like they wouldn't be as willing to help you understand something if you don't understand it. And you kind of have to force yourself to talk to the TA or the professor, go to their office hours in order to succeed. You kind of like you're kind of on your own in undergrad in a sense if you're going the pre-med route.
Mhm.
I feel like in so like a particular example is like I'm someone who really likes to help people. It's like if I have some good like volunteering or research opportunity, I would like bring my friends on board to it.
Mhm.
But my experience is even if I help my friends get these opportunities, if I were to ask them for help, they would not help me. If I wanted to get into like a research position, like I would ask my this particular friend if to see if there's any opportunities, and they would just lie and say no, there's nothing I can do for you there. So I just kind of felt like this sort of disconnect, even though we're friends, like we can't like bring each other up, and instead we have to like keep each other down in a sense, and it wasn't great.
Yeah, I think I have a similar personality as you in that I think we should all we don't should I mean like it's nice if we all can promote as much too, and I also try to like send along volunteer opportunities and research and stuff, and I'm definitely thankful that that's a change that I feel now in high school, med school, is that like for
Yeah.
example when I'm like, hey, I think this project, for example, if I haven't brought you in yet, but for example, if there was something that related to me and you, and in terms of like a research project, I would totally be like, hey, Yulin, do you want to do it together? And so I've already had like that successfully done. For example, I had a friend that is in pharmacy school, and then I have this project that's kind of related, and I said, hey, do you want to join me and let's collaborate on it? And I just feel like
Yeah.
that's just so much more comforting because in a way that's actually better because number one, you're getting their skills. Number two, you're finding a fun way to work with your friends, and you're not working alone on your project. And it's just a
Yeah.
healthy culture of collaboration and like sharing things along. And I definitely feel that now with our friend group, for example, like we share notes, we try to answer questions, and we like let each other know like this and that.
Hmm.
And yeah, like we send a lot of stuff along, like we know like so and so is really interested in this and we refer this along. And I really appreciate that culture. And I hope that like as time goes on that like more of the pre-med culture can be like that. And I guess like to encourage some pre-meds, like I definitely didn't get that at the beginning, but by the end of undergrad, like I definitely by third year, when I was applying to medical school and just finding like you're not going to find it from the general everybody, but if you find a few
Hmm.
or a bunch of friends where you're able to say like you're genuinely there to support each other, share whatever resources you have and lift them up and help each other out, I think that would make your experience a lot better. But definitely
Yeah.
it's a bit of a toxic culture in general pre-med,
Hmm.
so that needs
Yeah.
to change.
And that should definitely change because like it's much better if we're all trying to build each other up instead of trying to step on each other to get to our end goal. Because we're all trying to get into a profession where we're trying to help people. And if you're getting there by stepping on the backs of other people, it doesn't sit right with me, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm also not condemning anyone who does do that because I understand it's a super anxious process.
It
That
is.
there's
Yeah.
like, so few spots and like um,
Hmm.
all that. So I feel like it's the people are not always the cause, and it's a bit of a systemic issue. But hopefully realizing
Yeah.
that whenever and I'm sure you had that experience too, where the way you say like you get burned backwards, but I definitely feel like even when that really you get burned because you don't get held back or
Hmm.
whatever, somehow it burns you. I feel like it's still okay to make that choice,
Hmm.
to still try to be kind and generous whenever you
Yeah.
can. And someone else is not doing the same. That's fine. You just
Hmm.
continue living the way that is a good
I
process.
agree. I try my best to not let this like culture affect the way I treat other people. I still try to like help them, even though I didn't get anything in return. But it all turned out well. We all got into our end goal. So yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the, I guess, to switch the tone, what were some of your highlights of undergrad or experiences?
Highlights. It would have to be like a lot of the volunteering extracurriculars I did that brought me away from all the studying and all of that. So I did a bunch of volunteering at the soup kitchens, at the hospital, working with disadvantaged youth, and that was pretty rewarding in itself, and just brought me out of like thinking about studying and just trying to enjoy myself, trying to interact with people and my extracurriculars were pretty much related to the volunteering I did. Like some of the clubs I was part of was for soup kitchen, was for education and that kind of stuff. So it was just like on two fronts. I tried to do the things I like.
Mm-hmm. I had a question emailed in from a Premed that asked, like, how do you go about finding extracurriculars that suit you, and how do you choose, like, if you have a whole bunch of opportunities that you find, like research positions, volunteer opportunities, how do you go about choosing what to do?
So I think just try them out and see if you like it. If you like it, continue doing it. If you don't like it, then don't do it. Don't do anything for the sake of your resume because you're not going to learn anything if you don't enjoy doing it. And I feel like from my experience, getting opportunities was the difficult part, especially for research,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have any like background in university or connections in university to get these research positions.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I kind of directed myself towards more volunteering where I can just like offer my time and it was easier to get.
Mm-hmm. So how did you go about like finding, I don't know how it works at McMaster compared to UBC. Is there like a board or like an online option or something?
For volunteering opportunities, I got a lot of them through clubs. So I joined as a general member
Mm-hmm.
and went to volunteering with them, made my own connections through the volunteering organization, and then just work my way from there. But you can also like you can some undergrad programs like provide information on volunteering opportunities, but not all undergrad programs do it. Sometimes you just have to find it yourself. Like if you're interested in working with animals, you just have to like research and see if there's any opportunities out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Like actually a lot of the coolest opportunities in my experience were stuff that actually didn't even have volunteer opportunity. You're just like, this seems like a really cool opportunity.
Yeah.
I said shoot them an email, even though they don't have it, they don't take volunteers or students or whatever. I'm like, hey, I really enjoy this. I'm hoping maybe I have the skills or this experience that I can offer you in some way. Is there something that I can help out with? And I'm just happy to volunteer my time. And again, that kind of links to what Elin just said about doing it because you like it. If you're doing that and you're not even passionate about that thing, then obviously you're not going to find a really interesting way to contribute. But if it is something you're genuinely passionate about, then it'll be really easy for you to come up with ways to help out and self-initiate things. So,
yep, I agree.
So in terms of the clubs you joined, did you what kind of leadership experiences did you do?
So I mentioned I joined as a general member for the Soup Kitchen Club, and I was part of it for 4 years. So first year I was a general member. Second year I applied as an executive, and I got in. And the third, fourth year I moved my up to president for the club. And once I got my first leadership experience with the soup kitchen, it was much easier for me to get other leadership opportunities because I have this experience. So I would try. I was like, use this experience to get more experiences. Use those experiences to get more experiences. And I feel like an element of getting these leadership opportunities depends on the people you know. Sometimes friends make a club and then they bring their own friends to join it. But that was not my case. I had to just apply, go through the official route. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. You just have to apply a lot to a lot of different places.
Mm. Yeah, actually, one thing I was surprised about when I went to undergrad is, I think coming in from high school and just taking on a lot of leadership and stuff, that it was actually quite competitive to get executive positions
Hmm.
in undergrad.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a shock to me. I was like, what? And
Yeah.
then now realizing exactly as you said, a lot of it is based on connections. And this is not just to say like connections are bad. It's just people are more comfortable saying like, oh yeah, I know this person and I know how good they are. And so there's a lot of that going on. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. So, but just knowing that sometimes it's not because you suck and you have a terrible application. It's just because there's someone else who they know is going through that process.
Yeah.
And then also like sometimes like for one position, a lot of people actually apply. So it's surprising, and I would just like keep going and keep trying. And then one thing I actually would do as a pre-med is that to not just go for the big well-known clubs. So for example, UBC, there's like some really like the ones that are very evidently pre-med related. Those are really great clubs and they do a lot of great things and they're very organized, but usually it's because those are well known and they're very competitive. So if you're having trouble trying to get into something just to get your feet wet and experience, I would try to like think of some like lesser known clubs that are related to an issue that you are really passionate about, and just kind of branch your way
Hmm.
out.
I don't know how different it is at UBC because for McMaster, there's only like at most 100 something clubs, if I remember from back when I
Mm-hmm.
was in undergrad. So there wasn't like that many opportunities for you to get into these positions.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like super competitive in that sense. Like the UBC have a lot more clubs there,
I think I don't know
or
the
is it
exact.
mostly a
I want
similar
to
thing?
say there's a few hundred.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
There's also more people at UBC, so
it is a pretty big school. So.
yeah.
So yeah, no, definitely no need to be discouraged. Yeah, you mentioned research briefly. Did you do any research?
My research was like minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like I I spend most of my energy on volunteering on the extracurricular activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the reason I didn't get much opportunity in research is one, the professors, the researchers didn't reply back to me. I sent a lot of emails um, to professors, but they just didn't reply to me. So, and the second reason was like I know a lot of students get these positions during the summer through like research grants.
Mm-hmm.
But during the summer, I always had something to do. Either it was studying for the MCAT, taking summer courses, that it kind of detracted me away from doing or applying for these grants. So two
Mm-hmm.
reasons where I didn't have much research. But yeah.
I think a big takeaway from that is that like despite I think everyone thinks like you have to have research to get to medical school, and clearly
Oh,
you already
you
thought.
know, so everyone's path to med school is pretty much different. Some people do a lot of research and they get in, and other people do a lot of other stuff and they get in. And I feel like the med schools themselves look for particular applicants, and like if you do the things you like, spend time in it, put some effort in it, and show that you have something to gain from it to med schools, then there will be a med school out there who will take you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no set like criteria. You have to do this to get into med school. Like there's nothing you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
have to get good grades to get into med school. That's something else to consider. But in terms of like the things you do, it doesn't matter.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I almost wish I knew that more as a pre-med, just like you do anything basically, not anything,
Yeah.
but do it's actually open to be more open, and hopefully with these kind of videos and stuff that people can get more of a sense that there's actually so much variety. And I think
Mm,
as a pre-med myself, I had this perception that I had to have research, volunteering, leadership, and then some kind of hobby. And it was like there was like a formula. um,
yeah.
and it's passed around a lot, and I think it's just like a little bit no. It's not how it goes.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's and and it's pretty bad because like if you were to think that you have to do this in order to get med school, and then you can't get this position, then you'll feel really bad. You feel like you're not going to get into med school, even though the other aspects of your application is superb. So, and med schools themselves, they're very huge on diversity. So they don't just want someone who does research. They want someone who does different things. And you can see that in our class too, right? We all come from different backgrounds.
Mm. Yeah, in our class we have people who've done, masters and PhDs in research, and there's a prolific bunch of research, and some people, I want to say there's people in our class who have done like zero research prior to coming to Med, and I think there's actually a fair number of that. And then there's some people who've done amazing things. They've been like high-level athletes, and I think that shouldn't be alarming though. I think like it's not everyone is amazing at something. Most people are just like ordinary humans. They just did a lot of people are not outstanding. There are outstanding people, but most people are not. I feel like that's one thing that I almost got is a dangerous mindset too though. It's like the other side that people think that you have to be amazing in an extracurricular. Like I think that's totally a big myth. Like I have zero things that I'm amazing at. Still have zero things I'm amazing at.
I think we're all just average people who were lucky enough to get into med school.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
A lot of this med school process is dependent on luck, and we just have to be grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So I guess anything else from your undergrad experience that you needed to share, or you're pretty happy?
I think in general, my overall undergrad experience was experiencing failure, learning from it, and then just going upwards and succeeding. So like my entire undergrad was like that in terms of GPA, MCAT, applying to med school. It was failure, learning, and then succeeding. So an example of that is, so the transition from high school to undergrad was a pretty big difference. In high school, I did really well from just memorizing stuff. And in undergrad, I learned that memorizing is not enough. You kind of have to start thinking about it. So first semester of undergrad, I did pretty bad. But from second year, third year, and fourth year, I learned how to study and how to do these questions, and I just succeeded. I did so much better because I learned from my mistakes. The same thing goes for the MCAT, from applying to med school, from interviewing. So I guess my take-home point is don't be afraid of failure. What's more important is how you learn from that experience and try to better yourself from it. And we all, like, most likely we're all not going to get into med school out of third year. Some might take longer, and that was my case. I took 4 years of undergrad, 1 gap year, and then I got into med school. And it all turned out fine for all of us.
Actually, can you tell us more about your gap year?
Gap year, I mainly just worked at a medical walk-in clinic, so I kind of got into the administrative side of operating a walk-in clinic, and I learned a lot from that experience because, like I mentioned before, that in high school I didn't really like business, but from working at this clinic, I really got into liking, like, having my own practice in the future. So that was a cool experience for me, and it definitely changed like my future practice in a sense.
That's a really cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's cool about the clinic is that it was pretty large, 2 stories, and we had a lot of different doctors come in and work part-time. So we had like 80 doctors working part-time at the clinic at one point, and they would just offer like full health experience to the patient. So a patient might be coming in for say like a cough, and if the general doctor were to find that they need a specialist, we have a respirologist at the clinic, and they could just get an appointment within 1 week. So that was a pretty cool thing for me to see.
That is really cool. I feel like that's not very common yet. but a lot of people are moving towards something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, that was my undergrad experience. I hope it can shed some light onto the med school application process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was really helpful that you're able to share that too, because I think actually having a gap year or a couple of gap years is more common nowadays than going straight. But and I think the takeaway from that is also that your gap year, you actually learn things that you wouldn't have learned if you had gone straight through and you didn't have that experience working in that clinic, for example. So I think that's a really cool takeaway. Yeah, so like, how was the application process and all that?
I feel like applying to med school is like it's like playing a game in a sense, because you learn how to write your application, you learn how to interview, and it's just like a lot of it has to do with chance, and you just have to present yourself in the best way possible. And learning how to do that is it comes easy for some people, but it's very hard for other people. And for myself, I learned it the hard way. So, like, if I were to compare my first application to my last application, major difference in the way I present myself, and it can take longer for some people to get into med school because of that reason.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, it's a bit of an art. I think I was lucky because I applied really broadly when I was going from high school to undergrad and got myself rejected from a bajillion schools when I was applying for undergrad. But that was a really good, I think, like, looking back, I was like, what was the point of applying to all those schools instead of being focused? But I think learning a bit of that skill of your essays have to be, like, you have to, like, be thoughtful about what you write, and you can't write, like, cliche stories. It's a bit of an art that we don't, it's not anything that we learn. So in, academic undergrad, we learn how to write, a 5-paragraph essay, or in research, we learn to write research papers, but no one really teaches you how to write in a way that sells yourself. And it sounds
that's true.
Right? Like, it's a business transaction. I don't really think you're not like marketing or misrepresenting yourself. I think it's just it's almost being reflective in a way, to think about what are my strengths, what makes me unique. And it's not something we sit around all the time thinking about. I don't go like, oh, today it's Monday, and we think about what makes me like unique, So it was a bit of an experience. How did you end up like learning what to change or how to improve yourself between year 1 and 2?
I think like getting rejected just basically told me like I have to revise my application. So I applied to med school 3 times. First time, no interview. Second time, 1 interview. Third time, 6 interviews. So I I improve my writing abilities throughout the way, just like gradually improve the way I like present myself.
Mm-hmm.
So like even a simple question like why do you want to be a doctor? It's like someone might say, I like to help people, and that could be like very true, very honorable, but it doesn't sound good to someone hearing it. And you just have to say it in a way, and just in a way for it to sound good while also being true to yourself. And that's the hard part about it. And it's something that you have to learn yourself. I don't think people can teach you how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you just have to learn from the experience of applying to med school.
Mm-hmm. Did you, I guess this is a kind of a leading question, but like, did you ever get discouraged because you applied 3 times, or how did you keep yourself motivated and willing to apply a few times?
I guess like I'm a very I'm a very stubborn person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty persistent in the things I want to do. Like if I were like say something like simple as like playing basketball. If I were to be not good at shooting the ball, I would practice for hours on end in order to perfect it. And the same thing goes for applying to med school. I would just force myself in order to see what's wrong with the things I wrote, and do a lot of revisions. Send my application to friends for them to give their opinion on what they think, and then just try to integrate that feedback and rewrite it. I, I think I rewrote my application like 10 times for one application cycle, and that's something that that's pretty common, I feel, in a lot of the applicants.
I think, yeah, I think like there's that misperception that like, oh, we just do it once. Like it takes time and it takes a lot of revisions. And it also takes some people like having, like you said, some really honest
Yeah.
to know you and be like, this sucks. This writing is so dumb.
Yeah.
Redo it.
And yeah, I really like those feedback. Like, just tell me I'm bad, and then I'll fix it. And I guess like what helped me get through this whole experience is my parents. They were very, very supportive of this journey, and like even if I failed, they were there to help me stand back up. I really thank them for that. Yeah.
The best parents, most cuddliest experiences. And then I guess like after that, I guess in another video we've already talked about interviews. We should probably figure out how to link that somewhere. That you and I were talking about how to MMI prep. But after that, choosing where to go, and you basically moved all across the country away from your really amazing family to be here. How was that process?
The fact that UBC students are so nice and welcoming made this process much easier. Like on the first day of school, I met you and Vina and our other group of friends, and we just became friends instantly. So that was my new fam in med school, and it just helped me make the transition much better. And like nowadays, like even though I miss my parents, I'm still able to do video chats with them every day. So that although the physical distance was far, the fact that we are able to communicate with each other on a daily basis just made it easier for us to adjust. It was definitely hard in the beginning, and I flew back a few times in first semester of med school. But 2 years on, like it just made it we're used to it now, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How else did you find your medical experience so far?
Med school experience. Well, first 2 years is pretty similar to undergrad. We just go to lecture, learn the material, try to cram everything in a short amount of time. And socially wise, it's pretty similar to high school. We all have our own small group of friends. It's pretty cliquey. And so like in terms of social events, much better than undergrad. I've tried to do a lot of different things in med school, try to have fun, go to clubs, have fun with friends, and that's just a much more like welcoming experience compared to undergrad.
I would say similar too. It's a lot more. I want to say it's more relaxed, but it's definitely a lot more content. It's a lot of studying, but the overall experience feels less toxic. It's more of a time to explore and take care of yourself.
And I feel like a big reason for that is like since we all got into med school, we know what our future looks like, and that in and of itself is pretty comforting. Because in undergrad, we don't know what we're going to do in the future. Like we don't know if we're going to be a doctor or a researcher, and everything was so up in the air. But now that we're in med school, we can have this sense of security, and that makes everything much better. Even though there are competitive elements in med school, I feel like people are much more supportive of each other, and I think some of it stems from the fact of this security that we feel now in med school.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point, because I realize, like, for example, I'm such an anxious person, and often you have to reassure me with this line that, like I have this particular fields that I really want to go to, but you always assure me that, like, realizing that everyone's going to graduate and everyone's going to become a doctor in some form or shape, unless we choose not to pursue that, which is fine. But pretty much we're all going to graduate with that MD. We're all going to end up somewhere, someplace, and that once whatever field we go into, we're going to find a way to make it happy. We're going to find a way to make it work. And ultimately that's fine, because and also reminding ourselves of the mentality that when I was a pre-med, I didn't really care what kind of doctor I wanted to be. I just wanted to become some kind of doctor that was going to help people, and just trying to remind myself of the bigger picture that we've already achieved is really helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's nice about med school is like the faculty actually cares about us. And in undergrad, I feel like the only I didn't even know who like the support systems in my program were.
Yeah.
But here in med school, like I know them on a first name basis, and that was like a pretty big change compared to undergrad.
What kind of
Mhm.
like activities are you involved in now in med school?
Pretty similar to the activities I did in undergrad. In undergrad, I really liked music, the arts, I like sports, and I do the same things in med school. So
Mhm.
I do I'm part of this club called Arts and Medicine where we run coffee houses for the whole program. We also do art shows. I play intramural basketball, volleyball, do some weight training, that kind of stuff.
Mm. You're
Most
very
of it, most of it is for self care.
I think that's also the big shift I would say about for between med school and undergrad is as a pre-med, and I think you should do that as a pre-med is you have to do things in keeping in the back of your mind that you're also trying to go to med school, whereas right now extracurriculars are not. Oh, we've had this conversation. Extracurriculars, I would say maybe for other specialties it is a big deal, but for a lot of places it's really not. There's not a particular set of
Yeah.
things you need to be doing.
Hmm.
Really, like Elin is doing is like a lot of people are is really the extracurriculars are self-care and connecting to
Yeah.
classmates and stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, we're all doing this for ourselves. It's not for the sake of a resume. And doing that feels different than undergrad. So, it's a good kind of feeling, I would say. Yeah.
Anything else about med school? Any challenges that you found about med school?
Challenge. So I didn't come from a good physiology background.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things I learned in med school, I had to start from like point zero and try to understand it to the best of my abilities. Like I had zero anatomy experience. So learning anatomy was a pretty difficult thing for me to do because I didn't have that background. But I feel like even if that's the case, eventually we all reach the same level of competence. So just knowing that and just trusting the faculty in taking care of us is like helped me through that challenge.
Mm-hmm. Is there
Mhm.
anything you would have as like when you first started med school that you know advice to your younger self you would have said?
Um, just coming with an open mind. Try to make friends. Med school can be isolating at sometimes. It can be stressful,
Mm-hmm.
and what can help you get through it is a close group of friends that you make in med school.
Yeah, I would agree. I think med school has a lot in maybe not just because of med school, but also like reaching this age of my life, I've been learning to lean on people more.
Hmm.
I think you and I are very similar, very like strong-willed, ambitious, always been very independent as well. In
Hmm.
terms of like doing stuff, and so learning that like leaning on people is not a sign that I'm like, and I've always been the type of person that I want to be there for other people, but I don't really try to rely on other people, and so learning that in a way, learning to lean on people is strength.
Yeah.
It's a really good skill that more change that will take I think take us through as we become residents and then attendings and stuff is to learn to lean on your team, lean on your support system, and really do that. So that's a really good
Hmm.
one for sure.
And I guess like we're both introverts, and sometimes we might be shy in trying to make friends, but my advice is just stick to them and let them adopt you into their friend circle. And like, that's what I did. I stuck to you guys, and then it worked out for me. That was my goal.
That was your
That
goal?
was my goal. Yeah, that was my goal, and it worked.
You stuck. I remember that. I
Yeah,
remember we met, and then I was like, "Elin, come with me and Nina to." I
yeah,
forgot we went all the way over to the MSAC, and then we made you eat KB
hmm
with us, and then it
yeah,
was like I remember when we first tried to get to know you. It was like an interview. It was awkward and funny because I was like, Elin, tell me what you did in high school. Elin, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
What do you watch? And then Vina afterwards was like, dude, you're like interviewing the guy, like, shh. Worked,
The
clearly.
plan worked. That was my plan all along.
Yeah, and I would say I personally found it easier to make friends in undergrad and my med school right now. Like I would say, most people in our class, I would, if I spend enough time with them, I would be able to be friends with them because I would say a lot of us are very similar in personality and mentality and things. So I actually find it easier to make friends now compared to med school for sure, just because like a lot of people are very similar.
Yeah.
Other
People are easy to talk to in med school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other things that you would have liked to know or changed?
I guess like when I got into med school, I feel like so many people are already accomplished in life. Like a lot of them came in with either with children, married in a prior relationship, and it's like I just felt like wow, you were able to manage to have a personal life plus like academic success. And like for me, I spent most of my time just studying in undergrad, and I feel like I might have missed out on some of the other things in life, and that's some of the like one regret I have prior to entering med school because the the competitive nature of my undergrad just made it so that I had to ignore my personal life while just focusing on academics.
Mm-hmm. I relate to that too as well. I think I came in thinking everyone had their adulting life figured, and I was just beginning to do that. Like how do you do all these like social things? How do you balance like you said, people balancing families and relationships and adulting basically. It's a big thing, and I think some people experience that when they go from high school to undergrad, but I think I was similar to you. I just kind of launched into studying, launched into my extracurriculars, and didn't really do all that self-growthy social development. Like I mean, like I had stuff, but it's like a different level of responsibility. Different, and I think I would say maybe this relates to too, again, that social balance, that light work-life balance thing. I would say undergrad, I did not work-life balance. I just kind of was like full on work, and then sometimes sprinkle in of friends, but it was mostly like work. And some people have learned that social work-life balance then. I'm just learning that now, how to work-life balance.
And it's okay. Like we'll reach that level at some time in our life. Yeah.
It's interesting though. I would say the big thing for like you and I, like for example, we feel really intimidated that other people have their adulting lives together, and you're talking to some of our friend classmates, and I've had people say the reverse. They're like, "What? You think that about me?" They're like, "Oh, I feel intimidated by other people like you that are that have come pretty soon after undergrad. They feel like that we're so used to the mindset of studying." And that it was a transition for med school, where some of them, they had to kind of reset their mindset of switching from being a working adult to becoming a student. And they had basically everyone has their own struggle. So it's always like a grass is green on your side type of scenario. Cute.
Yeah. Other than that, there's not much more to share on my end.
Cute.
Yeah.
I think we're good. So I guess we can wrap up to summarize Elin's story. Let's see. Some of the things you talked about was being unafraid to fail and then rise up from that. Some of the things that you did were being stubborn about like reapplying and trying again and being willing to change yourself. Like especially when you were talking about your medical school application process and learning through that process. I would say another big one we really talked about was the toxicity of med culture, and like saying that like it's unfortunate that it's something that we have to encounter, but trying to be kind whenever you can, and not letting that get to you, and not letting yourself become part of that culture. Trying to take yourself out of it and change it in that whatever way you can. And then kind of takeaway from your med school experience, I would say, is like learning to transition and get used to being away from your old support system and growing a new one and finding that balance. And it's a good time. Any other things that I missed? There are key takeaways?
The most important thing is not getting stuck into the toxicity of the pre-med culture. What's more important is be kind to yourself, be kind to others, no matter of how other people treat you. And that doing that just shows a high level of maturity on your end, and it's something that's going to help you in the future for sure.
All right, so let's finish this up. So thank you to Elin for all his time today, and I think he's really eloquent, clear his answers. And so if you like more and like the video, subscribe. If you have questions that I can redirect to Elin, leave them in the comments. Questions for me, leave them in the comments. Ideas for other things you want to hear about, leave them in the comments. So
subscribe.
All right, let's end it. Bye.
Bye.